Welcome to welcome back to Elevate and Illuminate the Empowerment Podcast season finale. I am JaMarcus Fields, your host and the founder and executive director of Iron Sharpens Iron WAST. That is WAST for We Are Stronger Together, where our mission is to empower and equip at risk youth and justice involved individuals for successful reintegration back into society. We do that in a myriad of ways. We have an Ironclad Success Academy that consists of uh, seminars and a mentorship program, a 6-month mentorship program with youth from the ages of 8 up until 17. You can always keep up with us, whether we're in podcast season or not, via our website, Iron Sharpens Iron, WAST.org. Look into our calendar, see what kind of events we got going on, how you can get involved. One way is you can always go to the contact us section of the website and tap in, be it you want to volunteer, you want to be a board member, you want to be an Iron Man, you're a family member of someone incarcerated, and you just want to be of support to your loved one, either while they're incarcerated, on their way home, or once they get home. You can tap in with the Just Family Network. All of that stuff you can find through the website. Again, that is Iron Sharpens Iron, WAST.org, for all things Iron Sharpens Iron. We've been off for a few weeks, as most of the loyal followers have noticed. There hasn't been an Elevate and Illuminate for a minute now. So personally, I've been going through a bit of a transition um, in my personal life. Understanding that, and I explained once before that, my word for 2025 is impact. So I'm always looking for ways to have a greater and more powerful impact in this work that we do. Most of y'all know that I previously was employed with Pace Indy here in Indianapolis, where I worked for 2 years, first as a regional liaison in the Recovery Works Department. And then I transitioned to pre-release coordinator for the Breaking the Chains program, where we went back into what started as one but ended at four correctional facilities, doing MRT training, just helping to get the youngsters, um, to acknowledge and identify trauma, things that they've gone through in their childhood, in their past, different ways that you're triggered, and helping them find healthy ways to cope with the traumas that they've been dealing with. So the 17th of last month, I transitioned from Pace and leaped into the executive director role of Iron Sharpens Iron full time. So that is what I do now. To help push this mission forward. I like to look at it as I bought 8 hours of my life back to focus more on my calling, my purpose, what I was called to do, and that was to lift this brand and bring glory to God's kingdom. And that is exactly what I plan to do. Um, so with that, I thank y'all for tuning in. I thank y'all for staying on board. The support, the love that we feel. It definitely fuels us and helps us to keep pushing this thing forward. So without any further delay, we're gonna go ahead and get into tonight's conversation. Y'all already heard who I am. Some of y'all that's watching the podcast may know the guest, but I'm gonna digress and fall back, and I'm gonna allow her to introduce herself to y'all before we get into this conversation. Floor is yours.
I'm Barbara Brown. I am JaMarcus's mother. I am the one that is responsible for him coming into the earth.
That
I
part,
can't
y'all
believe
heard
you.
that.
I can't believe you got me on here because I am an introvert. I don't like people.
I already know, and that's why I know, like, God downloaded this into my spirit that this finale needed to be with you. Um,
And this
and
is
that
my
it was
theme song. This is my theme song. You know what? I bet you got it twisted. You don't know who to trust. So many players. I heard that so much in y'all life.
that part. Y'all see what it is? That's the theme music. Y'all heard it. So yeah, as I was saying, man, I prayed and I was in a season of fasting while I was getting ready to make this transition. And in the course of this fast, and I love fasting because it allows me to sit still, turn a lot of outside distractions off, and really be able to hear from God as He speaks to me in that still voice. And clear as day, He told me that my finale to officially end this season needed to be with you. When I first got that, I was just like Goldie in the chat. She said, "Hey, Aunt Bobby, what?" Like, I was like, "My mom, like, my mom ain't gonna want to do no podcast. Like, if she is on the scene, she really like to be in the background." Um, but I did as the spirit said. I came and asked you. You agreed to do it. I'm glad that you did. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna digress. This is you interviewing me. So I'm gonna shut up until you ask me some questions and then we're gonna get to it. So it's yours. Go ahead and take off.
Okay, I'm going to give a little background on you.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I think you heard me say when you were younger, we went to a movie, and it was I can't think, it was some kind of demonic movie. You hadn't even walked or anything yet, and I had bought you a big wheel. So when we got back from the movie, you got on the big wheel, which was upstairs, and you down them stairs. You never walked, you never crawled, and I knew then you were somebody different. So let's
Okay.
fast forward a little bit. As you started out in school, I was always getting calls from the school saying that you were bad, you needed some medicine, they wanted to diagnose you with ADHD and all this. But I knew there was nothing wrong with my child, but there was some kind of calling that or something special about you that I didn't know because I wasn't fully in the church and I wasn't in the word. Fast forward, as I got into the word, I realized that God had a calling on your life, but I didn't know how to cultivate or assist or anything because every and anything you touched, you were successful at. So by the time you got to first grade, they had a program called um, a special school that I put you in. And I said, he needs to be challenged because he's not bad. It's not that he's bored or anything. It's just that y'all not teaching him nothing. So that's when I put you in the what was the name of that school, Mark? Down near Pontiac.
The magnet about the
The
magnet
magnet school.
program.
Yes, I put you in
Yeah.
the magnet program. That still didn't work because you dominated that. So we moved from one school to the next because the magnet program had different specialties. But everywhere I put you, it didn't work because you aced them out. I mean, you magnified them. I mean, you had them baffled. Um, and then the program ran out when you got to the sixth grade. And that's when there was no middle school or high school. So I was forced to put you in a public school. And I think that's when I saw the difference because even then you were magnificent in school, all during school. I don't care what you did. If it was a challenge, you were going to beat that challenge. So I guess and I went back and forth in life as all mothers go through trying to figure out what could we have done better or what could we have done different. Um, I'm going to ask you, when you left the magnet school, went into the public school, what did you think?
Um.
Because it was a total
I-
different environment.
yeah. Um. It was a culture shock. Um. And it's crazy because I often tell the story. The only way my story slightly differs is what I thought was the reason I went to public school. I'm hearing you say it. I see what it was now. I thought it was a different reason why I went to public school, but I knew that was the moment something different in me switched. Um, because when I was in magnet schools, I was around um clearly like-minded people. All of us were, what we call nerds. Um,
Yep.
and I was a star athlete. So like I was used to getting all the attention academically, athletically, like, I was used to the spotlight being on me. So when I went to the public school, I've I've gotten addicted to this spotlight now. And the way to garner the spotlight in that environment called for some different stuff. It didn't call for how intelligent your level of intellect. It didn't call for, it was a whole different way that you got the spotlight. And as you said, when I run into challenges, I try to ace them. Like there's no gray area with me. It's either nothing or 100. So I give everything that I attempt to do 100%, right or wrong. I'm gonna give it my all. And so in that quest to get the spotlight in that environment, I had to become somebody different. And I had to do some things that I wasn't used to doing. And per the usual, I found out I was good at them. And that was a problem.
Yeah. Because you play football, then you join a dance team, and I think you liked the spotlight. And I noticed that because you was
Mhm.
not a follower, you were a leader. And I saw that whatever this gift was or whatever the calling God had on your life, it was for you to lead. And I saw how people followed you. So fast forward again. Then we get through high school, you finish high school, and then you move out and you catch a case. I don't think people that are incarcerated, men or women, understand the trauma that the family member goes through. Um, I remember the day we were in court and you were being sentenced, and he sentenced you to 60 years. I know what it did to me. What did it do to you when you heard that word 60 years?
It crushed me. Um, it humbled me and it knocked me off my high horse. And when I hit the ground, I think for the first time in my life, I doubted whether I would be able to get up. And I've never doubted my ability in my life until that point. I was like, I think I done got myself wrapped up in something that's a little too big for me to figure out. And I was scared. I wasn't scared of the environment. I wasn't scared of, the killers, the gangsters inside the prison. I was scared that I thought I had met a challenge that I couldn't overcome. I thought that was too much for me. 60 years inside of a prison. Um, I don't know how to turn me down. So I even thought that was going to be a problem. Like, I'm having to ask myself, how do I go into prison and dumb myself down? Because for the first time in my life, now I don't want the spotlight. But everything about me breathes and says, I'm here.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
didn't,
funny
I
you
didn't,
said that because I had a different thought. Because, my prayer to God was because I knew how effective you was on the street. I told my prayer was for God to save you. Don't let me bury none of my children. Save you. And when he did that, I couldn't understand why so long. I was not rejoicing that you got arrested or you got convicted and all that. I was rejoicing that my prayers were answered. But then on the other hand, I knew he finna take over that prison. I knew wherever you went, it didn't matter. you was gonna survive and dominate.
Mhm.
So when you
Wow.
got to prison, what did you think when you walked through them doors? I mean, you was a kid. You're 18 years old. Um,
Yeah.
and you can't make me think that there was some type of trauma or fear that encapsulated you as bad as you poke your chest out. Because when you poke your chest out, okay, I'm ready now.
Yeah. Being totally transparent, initially I was scared. I had just when I walked into the prison, I had just sat in the county jail for almost 2 years fighting the case. And all I did was fight in the county jail. Like I fought. I for them whole 2 years, I fought. There were times I fought, went to lockup, came off lockup before I could even unpack my stuff. I'm fighting again. Um, and I basically like lived in segregation. I went to my trial from the hole for fighting. So when I get to prison, like now I'm amongst, some giants that in my mind have no hope. So this fighting spirit ain't gonna quite cut it because you fighting somebody with a life sentence, like they not thinking fight, they thinking kill you. They don't care nothing about a fight. They don't care nothing about notches on the belt. They don't care nothing about that. Um, so again, I'm trying to figure out ways to turn me down because I didn't want that attention. I didn't want to have to keep fighting. Like I just fought for 2 years consistently. I didn't want to fight for the whole 60. Like I just don't want to do that. And I'm good. I'm cool with fighting. Like they surgical. But I didn't want to do that for no 60 years. Like, so I was scared. I was confused. I was lost. Like it was all kind of stuff going through my mind. And I'm 18 and I just moved out your house. So like I really don't even know what it's like being on my own.
Mhm.
So, I was at a point where I'm like, it's time to man up. And if I'm completely honest, I don't even really know what it means to be a man.
Mhm. Mhm.
So how do you step into something that you really know nothing about?
Mhm. You made a statement a couple of times when you got out, and I would need you to expound on this statement. You said I was in the belly of the beast, and I think I know a little bit about what you were referring to, but explain when you say I was in the belly of the beast and nobody will understand.
Yeah, it's a different kind of environment in there. And I'm like, I I knew because I lived it. I sat back and you already know I watched my uncle when I was younger go back and forth to prison. And it didn't matter how long Unc went and did. As soon as he came back home, he was right back at it. I'm talking about the day his feet touched the concrete, he was right back at it. So watching that, as so many other youngsters watch guys go and come back, go and come back, like prison, it's not a deterrent anymore. So I went in like again, not necessarily fearing prison, but with that 60 years in the unknown, that's where my fear came from. But it's a different kind of environment in there. Like most times, like you try to maintain as much of you as you can. But like I had to totally become somebody else. And the thing with that, it's like a person that tells a lie, and you tell this lie so much you start to believe it. Though the lifestyle that we lived, like there are so many things that became habit that was so deep ingrained in us
Mhm.
that we don't even know how to turn the stuff off.
Mm.
Like getting ready to come back into society, you would think like everything that we're in control and capable of taking off, we take off before we even come home to y'all. The problem is that may be only 6 layers deep to a
Mm.
100 layer onion.
Mhm. Mhm.
And those 6 layers we took off, we thought we really didn't strip some stuff, but this stuff then became so ingrained in us
Mhm.
that it we were in a different type of culture, dealing with some inhumane conditions, dealing with some very discriminative, racist individuals. We had to swallow a lot. We really didn't have a voice. So one of two things gonna happen when you finally find your voice again. You're gonna come out here and you're gonna talk too much because you make enough for being muzzled, or you're not gonna talk at all because you already know people not gonna understand you. That's why when we get together, guys that done did time, that's a mental health day for us
Hmm.
because we understand each other. We're bonded by the pain, the struggle that we had to overcome. And it's like you can sit and explain it to somebody who ain't been through it, and they, so even if they don't say it, sometimes the look on their face is like, man, you a whole grown man, get over it. I'm
Mhm.
trying.
Right. Right.
So that
Right.
tells me like they don't understand. And for me to try to explain it, it's like I might as well sit here and try to convince a wall.
Right.
And so it becomes pointless. And so
Mhm.
when we get around each other, like you'll notice, like our spirits light up, we get to reminiscing and
Familiarity.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we can only do that with each other.
Right. Right. So how did you be? How did tell me the day that you finally surrendered and gave it to God? Because I go into IWP and I'm a part of Kairos and I deal with the women that are incarcerated.
Right.
And there's a lot of religion, especially Muslims. Look like them. A lot of them brothers go in and out, and they are raised in a Christian home, but they come home and they Islamic or whatever you want to call it. How did you get away from, or how did you not be able to get caught up in that?
Um, the simple answer is raise up a child in the way they're going. When they get old, they won't depart from it. Um, I know how I was raised. And thankfully for me, I was trying to hold on to as much of my natural, authentic self as I could. I didn't want to lose my total identity while I was in prison. I tried to hold on to as much as I could. And, even though I bucked the system when it came to church growing up, it wasn't because I didn't believe in it. It was because you had me in there 6 days a week. that's that's why I
No lie.
bucked it. I didn't buck it because I didn't believe in God. I was trying to run from God. I just didn't want to do it every day. But I knew what it was, and I held fast to that.
Okay.
Um, you know, I may be bored, I may be bad, I may be a whole lot of things, but like I'm I'm not no dummy. And what's right, like I know what's right, whether I act on it or not. Like I got enough sense to know where I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to move. Um, and so I remember I was sitting on lockup. I had just got well, we just had this fight. Really wasn't a fight. A it was a gang movement. And I was I was holding down a sale house for the disciples. Meaning, I got security team, I got enforcers, and so when we run into this problem, like by the order of hierarchy, I'm supposed to send the enforcers to go handle this. I'm supposed to sit back because in my position, I'm supposed to stay in that position. But I was such a boots on the ground kind of soldier that I rolled out and handled it myself. I ended up on lockup, and I was sitting up there one day, just I just went to the shower the day before, and I walked past one of my guys' cell, and he's sitting in the doorway at his bars with poop smeared all over his face. I'm talking about all over his face. He did like something in him mentally that snapped, and he done lost it. And so I literally just looked at this, and I'm like, dang. Like it hit different when you know this individual and you had a certain standard in him, and I thought he was stronger than he turned out to be. And I was like, like, man, come on, man, pull yourself together. But the reality of it was something had snapped in him and he was gone. So when I got back to my cell after taking my shower, I was sitting there reflecting. I literally like had to ask myself, what am I doing? Like, how did I get so far off track?
Uh-huh.
Like prison wasn't part of the plan. You had, my grandmother had such high expectations and big hopes and dreams for me. And I'm like, how did I end up here? Like, I was preparing for college. I was preparing for scholarship, playing football. I was planning to be on people's TV every Saturday. How did I end up in prison with a murder case? And that's when my for the first time as an adult that I actually fasted. But I didn't fast in the typical way of fasting. I went on a talk fast. I wanted to just shut up. I didn't want to have no conversations with nobody. I got into my word. You had sent me that Amplified Bible. So I started reading that Amplified Bible, and I was still doing, and when I say raise up a child in the way they would go, remember how you used to have me and my brother sit at the table and not only read the Proverbs for the day, we had to write it. So just like today is May the 7th, I would have had to read Proverbs 7 and then write out Proverbs 7 before I could go outside and play. So I went back to my roots. I started reading Proverbs every day. I started writing it down, and I started allowing God to download into me. And what happened was God started revealing stuff to me. And then I'm sitting back. I was like, man, I gotta be a poster child for insanity. I came to prison for what society deemed a gang-related killing. Now I'm inside of a prison for gang-related activity. Like that's one of those look at yourself in the mirror like stupid. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like you've been playing chess since you was a kid, man. Go on and make the game and get yourself on up out of here, man, and quit playing with life.
Yeah.
And my man 2 Chainz said, "This ain't no practice life. You don't get another chance."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I locked in, man. I said, man, I'm gonna right this ship. I'm gonna go back to population. I'm gonna uh I'm gonna plug out. I'm gonna go get educated. Gonna give me a college degree, and then got back. It was crazy because I started out as Marcus. I ran from Marcus to become Blue, only to run from Blue and go back to Marcus.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I got back to Marcus, life started to make sense again.
Right. Right. I remember I was in Indianapolis at a church. I think I told you. And the lady tapped me on the shoulder and she says, "Are you Marcus' girlfriend?" I said, "No." And I turned around and Myra said, "Grandma, you remember her? She was in the visiting room." And I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, that was the lady sitting at the desk in the visiting room." And I turned around and I said, "Why you think I was his girlfriend?" I said, you said Blue. Who was Blue?" I knew then there was another character. I said, "Who is Blue?" I said, "Uh oh, he didn't got another name. Oh, let me switch my prayer up."
Ah, I switched the prayer up.
Because I know you can fit. You've shown me you can always fit in any s- situation. I mean, you can come in the hood and you back to that little boy Marcus. You can go over here
Mhm.
with those black and white tie, and you can become that professional person. You've always done that. But I want to go back to when you said that I kept you in church a lot. As you
Mhm.
got older, now you know I was training you up as to make sure that when you became old that you wouldn't depart.
Right.
Uh, did you guys resent me for that?
No.
For keeping y'all in church? I know y'all resented me for taking all the albums and breaking them up. Y'all told me that
De-
several times.
Definitely. So back then we
Yeah,
did,
yeah,
but as you get older, like I look at those moments and I'm grateful that you did that.
yeah,
Because without that, without laying that foundation and rooting me and keeping me centered in God, that was the only way I was able to find my way back to the main road,
yeah,
was through God.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And that was stuff that was instilled in me when I was a kid. And so like I'm grateful for that stuff, even though I didn't understand it then.
yeah.
I was asked by a teen one time, what could somebody have said to me when I was their age, a teenager, that would have made a difference? And I responded, nothing. And, they just kind of looked like nothing. And I was like, I say nothing because everything that I needed to hear, I heard.
Mhm.
I got it. I got it from you. I got it from grandma. I got it from the youth pastor, Mark, at the church. I got it from my pastor. Like I got it from everybody. The thing is, like when you plant a seed, the size of a mustard seed will work if it's planted in fertile ground. And
Mhm.
my ground wasn't fertile.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
y'all planted the seeds, but they sat there until somebody came and cultivated the soil and tilled me up and allowed my ground to become fertile and it took root. So as an adult, man, I'm eternally grateful that you did that. As a kid, I didn't understand it and I wanted to buck the system.
I have another question. Do you guys ever think about the trauma that family goes through when you're incarcerated? Because I've seen a lot of mothers have strokes, heart attacks, um, doing their best to support their loved ones that are incarcerated. And you probably got examples of family members that have deserted them.
Mhm.
There's no support. Um, and I'm finally getting it. Why? Um, but my question and my concern is that do you ever think about what the family is going through? How your decision impacted the family?
Today I do. Um, I haven't always. As you know, I've been dealing with trauma a lot lately as I've become certified in MRT and I facilitate trauma. So it's giving me a whole of a look at trauma and what trauma actually means. Um, and I now understand that, what individuals had to go through. And because we're in the midst of fighting our own battle, sometimes that gets lost. We get so caught up on what didn't happen to us and what we
Mhm,
trying to overcome
mhm,
that we totally miss that you dealing with your own trauma.
mhm,
I've realized how for some of us, our presence being back out here can be a trigger to some people, and
mhm.
not necessarily a trigger like in a way to where we done them bad, but we're a trigger to a period in their life that they really don't want to remember. because some families went through some hard times and some turmoil behind our stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like I had to think about my brother.
Uh-huh.
Me being out there in the streets. I'm in the dope game. I'm gang banging, and a lot of unresolved stuff that I left on the streets. He
Uh-huh.
had to deal with.
He had to deal with. Yeah.
Coming fresh off of
Uh-huh.
a head injury of being
Uh-huh.
shot in the head. So like he wasn't even ready to take on all of the trash that I left out there in the streets. So I can imagine that, everybody went through some hard times. And
Uh-huh.
so now I'm recognizing that. If
Uh-huh.
I'm being completely honest, when I came home, I wasn't in that place.
Yeah.
I wasn't, and I probably came off very selfish and heartless, if you will, pun intended, um, because I was so focused on trying to piece my life back together
Uh-huh.
that that took every second, every day, every thought, and I wasn't thinking about the effect and the impact that it was having on other people the way that I am now.
Right. Right. Now, another question. When you came back out here, what did you expect in me? I know you heard stories. There were different ones that was incarcerated. Oh, you Bobby son, because that spirit of fighting, you got that from me.
Oh, I know.
You got that from me. I fought all during the pregnancy. You step on my toe, I'm coming at you. Trayvon Martin hoodie. That's old. I invented that.
I say that, dude.
You might not know I'm getting you, but I'm getting you. But that I felt guilty about because I believe that even when you were in kindergarten and y'all saw me fighting, when we was at the skating rink, somebody urinated all over you. What happened? I went to jail. Grandpa had to come get you because I said, I'm finna turn it up. Who peed on you? So I felt bad that you learned that was natural.
Yeah.
And you were the only one that was, every time you look around, you was fighting.
Mm.
And mom had to remind me, it's in the blood. You did that. So I guess my question is, even when you came back, what did you expect? Even though over the years, I visited you constantly, but still you didn't know what state of mind, what kind of trauma did I go through while you were incarcerated? Did that ever cross your mind? Because I had some
when I
trauma.
again when again when I first came home, it hadn't.
Okay.
Like I wasn't aware, like I simply wasn't aware of trauma like that. Um, so I didn't when I first came home. All I knew was, you know, despite the stuff that I heard,
Mm-hmm.
what I knew in my spirit was, you know, I don't know what life has in store for me, but in my heart, I knew my mama wasn't gonna let me fail. So if everybody else is laughing at me, if this becomes too much, if it takes me a little too long to adjust, like I look to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, grandma gone, to me, you were the matriarch. So that's why I was coming to you and drilling you with questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? How do I do that? And in total transparency, I would get a little frustrated when you didn't have an answer because I expected you to have all the answers for me that I needed. Um, and that wasn't fair and that wasn't real, but that's just where I was. You know what I mean? Like you said, you visited me repeatedly and
Religiously.
religiously, yeah. And
I
you're
think there
the
was a period of a couple of years we didn't talk because I had to back up and get me mentally because mentally I wasn't there. I was just going through the
gotcha.
motions, but I was
Hmm.
surviving. But I don't think you guys knew that. because you
Right.
were dealing with your trauma. So that's why I say I don't think those that are incarcerated understand the trauma, even though you're dealing with your trauma. Do you ever consider the trauma that the family is dealing with, the family is going through?
Yeah, that's deep. Like just knowing for myself, knowing that, like I said, initially I wasn't here of late. I'm more conscious of that. But now it makes me wonder, how many individuals are um in comparison to the vast majority who don't.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I
And if
believe
you've
it's
been
very,
incarcerated over 10 years, things have changed.
yeah,
People have changed. Life has changed. You came out and immediately we were ushered into a pandemic. So
right,
you're basically incarcerated in your house again.
right,
So, that again, I think everybody deals with trauma, if we would be honest with ourselves, and we deal with it in a different different ways. But I don't think you realize that maybe the mother, the brother, the sister, they're dealing with their own trauma and they might not even tell you what
right.
that incarceration did to them and did to the family.
Wow.
You're an avid reader because you sent a bunch of books home. Have you ever read The Five Languages of Love?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me pick your brain. What does love mean to you?
um, so when you first ask me what does love mean, I'm immediately gonna tell you it depends on if we talking an agape love, uh filial love, like what kind,
What is your
because
definition?
we can't generalize love.
Okay. What is your love language?
My love language is words of affirmation.
Okay. Do you know what your calling is? Have you recognized the calling God has on your life?
Yes,
So you do know that God has a calling on your life.
absolutely.
And you have answered that calling.
I'm It's in process. I'm answering it daily.
That's being truthful. Um, Now, I remember when you were locked up in the was it Wood Youth Center and
Juvenile.
juvenile? Yeah, you were locked up in
Yeah.
juvenile detention
Would.
when Junior had got shot. Now I know
Hmm.
you heard all kind of stories there. How did that make you feel? Because he depended on you. You left him out here, like you said.
You mean while I was in juvenile or once I went to prison?
When you were in juvenile, and then you went on to prison from that. But when you were in juvenile is when he got shot. And I remember I think you had to go into isolation or they put you, I forget what you call it.
Yeah,
Uh,
they put me in lockup. They put me in SEG.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, how did you feel leaving him out there like that? How did you feel? What was your,
Well, my feeling while I was in juvenile is totally different than my feeling once I got to prison. Um, while I was in juvenile, because you remember I got out of juvenile and then caught the case and went to prison. But while I was in juvenile, I was there wasn't a sense of guilt in that moment. My initial response and reaction was anger. I wanted to make people hurt. Um, so I manipulated my way out of that case. I
mm,
was supposed to went to boys' school,
mhm,
and I think we expected me to go to boys' school.
mhm.
I used my words and I wrote a letter to the judge. While I was in SEG, I wrote it on toilet paper, not regular paper. I wrote it on little square pieces of toilet paper with a piece of pencil lead I found in the corner, and asked the dude when he went to court if he could hand that to the judge for me.
Mm.
I said, man, whatever it takes, bro, please get this to the judge for me. I don't know what he had to do, but he got it to the judge, and they called me to court that afternoon, and the judge decided to let me go. And he told me, if you come back, I'm sending you to boys' school. I don't care if it's for stealing a piece of gum. And he let me go. I remember you coming to get me. We went straight to the hospital. And I walked in and seen a sight that I was not prepared for. That moment broke something in me. I don't have a whole bunch of brothers and sisters. I got one sibling, one brother. And we 2 years apart, so we grew up together. We thick as thieves. And I remember when I walked in, his head was like big as a beach ball. And I got queasy initially. And he started flopping around on the bed. So they made us leave. They got him calmed down. They let us come back. Soon as I stepped across the threshold into his room, he started violently shaking again. And the nurse said he can feel you in the room. So I had to leave. That's the only way they was gonna get him calmed down. I wasn't finna wait in the waiting room. So I left because now my mind is I gotta go eat these blocks up out here and I gotta make some people hurt. I don't even know what happened, but somebody getting ready to hurt and feel a worse pain than what I'm feeling right now. So that was my initial thought coming out of juvenile. When I got to prison, that changed because now, like I said, I fought my whole 2 years while I was in the county. I fought because of my case. So everybody thought, like I guess they forgot, excuse my excuse my French, that I used to kick ass my whole life. And they thought because I didn't have my pistol now that they got me. So all I did was fight, 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 fight. And so once I get to prison, actually when I got to RDC, and I'm actually in a room, isolated, because even in jail, like it's a pod effect. There's 100 people around you all the time. But when you go to RDC, like you stuck in this room, so you get to get your first glimpse of prison and being isolated. And so now my wheels is turning again, and I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, man, I wonder if people out there messing with my brother to send a message to me. Because that's what I did when bro got shot. Dude went into hiding, and so I started beating up his family
Mm.
every day to pull him out into the street. So I know the street mentality when you at war, when you beefing, like it's open season for everybody. You remember they came through and shot your car up. It becomes open season for everybody. So I began to wonder what was bro going through. He
Yeah.
just getting out of a coma. Like he ain't in a position to be defending himself and like really getting down like that. And I'm like, I hope ain't nobody taking advantage of him, because if I hear that they are and they land in prison with me, I'm probably not coming home.
Yeah.
So all of that's going through my head.
Yeah. So, what point in your incarceration did you figure you need to forgive? Because I remember the day you told me you need to reach out to the victim's mother and you
Hmm.
need to tell her the story, which I thought was admirable. And you needed,
Hmm.
because, like you said, the news had this thing blown all out of proportion. The papers, they act like it was a gang war out there, and and I know the truth. But you felt it necessary to reach out to Miss Wilson.
Hmm.
What? What? Why?
Man, I was thinking one day, God was doing a work inside of me. And I began for like the probably the first time in my life that I can actually take note of. I started to have this overwhelming sense of empathy.
Mhm.
Um, so when I would think about it, I would replace the people. So I put you in Miss Woodson's shoes.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, how would this have hit my mom? You know what I mean? Like when you find yourself in a situation where, let's say it's do or die. It's me versus somebody else. One of us gonna die tonight.
Mhm.
Somebody's family is gonna have to visit somebody in prison, and the other one is gonna have to grieve the death. So I began to look at how that would have impacted you. Because
Mhm.
I saw what bro being shot in the head did for you,
Mhm.
really did for all of us. So now I have to amplify if we had actually lost him and how we would have felt about that. Like I was trying to make the earth rotate the opposite way on his axis, trying to get to the root of this because I needed to make people hurt. So in my mind, I'm like, that was like my first time really taking a real look at the pain and the hurt that I had caused that family, and what they were going through, um, and how we would have been if roles were reversed.
Mhm. Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So I'm like, dang. So I was like, I need to reach out to them and I need to right this ship.
Mhm.
Like I need a lot of forgiveness myself. And it's so funny that as I'm going through this forgiveness season, that I run into dude who shot my brother while I'm at Miami
Mhm.
in the heart of this season. And you know, I I remember clear as day when he spoke to me and said, "You don't remember me, do you, Marcus?" When I heard that, like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up because nobody in prison called me Marcus. So when I heard that, I immediately knew it was somebody from the streets.
Mhm.
So my security is heightened at this point, and I'm still drawing a blank on
Mhm.
who this is standing in front of me.
Mhm.
And when he told me his name, all I saw was red because I had vowed for almost half my life what I was going to do if I caught up to him.
Mhm.
But I'm in this season of forgiveness. So all I could say in the moment was, wow.
Wow.
It was probably maybe 90 seconds. And I probably said wow about 60 times. Like
Right.
no exaggeration. No other words would come out of my mouth but wow.
Right.
But on my way, once they rolled the door on my way to my room, I was washed with the understanding and the peace that I had just passed the test.
Mhm.
And I told my bunkie when I got in the room, he was like, "You all right?" I said, "Man, I just seen the dude who shot my brother." So he jumped up thinking something been went on because I done vented to him. He know what's going on. And I said, "Nah," I said, "I'm good, bro." I said, I just passed the test.
Yeah.
He was like, "What test?" I said, "Here I am asking God for forgiveness.
Yeah.
I'm seeking forgiveness from my victim's mom. And God wanted to see how I would act when
Yeah.
I was the one who needed to forgive
Right.
somebody."
Right.
So that changed the game. Like I literally went on a forgiveness tour.
Mhm. Because I
After
remember
that,
you was relentless in trying to contact them, and they wouldn't let
yeah,
you reach out to to ask that for forgiveness. And it's funny you said that, because I remember when I ran into his parents. I think I shared that. I'm not sure if I shared it with you or Junior, but I ran into his parents at the hardware store. And same thing. I said, wow, there's Jacob, mama and daddy. Oh my God. I ain't got my peace. Oh my God. I'm just going back and forth. And that's when God arrested me in the car, because I
Mhm.
think we have to forgive in order to be forgiven. And I think that's one of the things I think, um, I'm sure iron sharpen iron minister to the guys, that we have to move on and realize that everything we went through in life, I can look back now, and as bad as I think some of the stuff I went through, I thank God for it,
Right.
because I was going through a season of learning people and learning how to
Mhm.
walk and trust God. So that's why I asked you, when did you come to the realization that you have to forgive?
Yeah.
And you told me one time, the hardest thing is to forgive yourself.
Mhm.
Explain that.
Like,
I look back over
it's
my
just
life and I look at some of the decisions I made, and I think I know what you're talking about, because I had to look back and say, hey, it is what it is. Whatever happened to me, it didn't, it was my choice. I had a decision in it. And I learned some things along the way, but I don't know what you mean when you say it's hard. The hardest thing is forgive yourself.
yeah, and like that mentality was birthed in me because, you know, never mind how anybody else may have felt about it. And that's again, that's not to minimize them, because I've thought about what my incarceration, the impact it had on you, the impact it had on the rest of my family. I've thought about that countless times, but I disappointed me. And that's the hardest. We are our own worst critic.
Hmm.
I disappointed me. Like when I look, I'm like, I had it made. I'm like I had the red carpet rolled out for me. So I had to ask myself, how did I mess that up?
Hmm.
How did I mess that up? Like every it not that I didn't put in work, but like I was naturally so good at everything that it seemed like everything was handed to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, how did I mess that up?
Yeah.
And so that ate me up for a long time, man. I'm sitting in prison, and I remember the first time I made the state team, like mid-20s maybe. But I wasn't happy with that, because I'm supposed to be on somebody's campus right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I noticed, I'm like, and so it took me a long time to forgive myself for messing up my life the way I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't get past that. So that affected the way I treated other people.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how can I love you if I don't love me? I was upset with me.
Yeah.
So I was upset with everybody else. The world was my playground, man. And I was like moving pieces recklessly because I didn't even care about me.
Yeah.
So like, how I'm gonna protect you? I just pushed the pawn into danger because I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Yeah. I saw that people made idol. They made an idol out of you. They made you think you were, as they say back in the old school, Don Corleone. You could do no wrong, and you fed into that ego.
yeah,
And I don't think you knew at that particular time that, but you probably did, that you were the king. You were king of the streets. But then when you came back home, you became JaMarcus. I don't know what you was out there. I used to feel guilty, and I used to think, okay, because when you remember the summer I let you guys go to Chicago, I never let you guys go nowhere and spend the night at nobody's house. I let you guys go to Chicago for the summer with your daddy's people. You came back here,
I
you formed a gang, you had to. I said, oh my God, I had to come get you before the summer was over with. Because Junior called me. I said, what's going on? I said, I'm coming. I said, let me go get my kids. You came back here. And after that, that's when I saw the change. I don't know if you remember the change,
I do.
but I remember the change. I thought he went to Chicago and he saw what it was like. And I felt
Yeah.
so guilty for years for that.
That's crazy you say that. We've never talked about that, but I know you did because I definitely changed. Like Chicago did something different to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I brought it back home and
And you
re-
enforced it.
wreaked havoc through the whole city. Yeah, that true statement. I knew that though. Like I said, we've never talked about it, but I knew that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, because my mom, she'd never let us go. I don't care, s- siblings or whatever. She never let us go with any of her siblings. We never went anywhere and spent the night. And was thankful. I used to think she was mean, but I was thankful for that because that was her way of protecting us. And I thought I should have, you know, I tried to follow a little bit of her upbringing that she instilled in me, but I let my guards down when I let you go to Chicago, and I felt really bad about that. And I thought, okay, I did this.
Wow.
uh, I don't know what else I could ask you at this point.
Well, I was
Uh,
gonna say, actually, we're actually over the hour. So if you do
oh,
have another one, let's get one more in, and then we'll close out just to respect everybody else's time.
uh, so you've answered that God's calling and you're progressing in it. I was going to answer a question on here that somebody had wrote. Uh,
Darby said, "Don't stop."
no, I was going back. I was going to answer Stephanie's question about trauma.
Was it a question or just a comment? Because I see
Uh,
one where she said all have to accept that trauma is real and we have to open up and talk about it honestly.
yes, that's
Uh,
the question, and that's the thing. See, we as Black people, we don't like to talk about trauma. We don't want to talk about uh, when I think when you came home, I was trying to recommend you go to therapy, get counseling, because I thought nobody could be incarcerated that long and not be traumatized.
right,
I wasn't incarcerated, but I went through enough with you and then my dad that I went and sought counseling. So, you know, trauma is real and we need to talk about it because a lot of Black people in our community, we think that it's a bad word.
right,
And seeking out a counselor or therapy, it's not bad. I'm going to end it
right.
with that.
Yeah, it's definitely not. When I had this accident to my finger,
Mm-hmm.
when I lost the tip of my finger, um, I tell this story all the time, man. But even in the midst of this very traumatic experience, I still hadn't digested or really understood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Because like this this situation right here, when I lost my finger, man, you know, most people see me for who I am. I've been, looked at, I've been called a very strong individual. And so the fact that I survive and here I am with the tip of my finger missing and everything is going good, almost died that night.
I was going to say, that was a near death experience, and that was traumatizing on top of the trauma you were already dealing with when you came out.
Yeah, right. Like, and I've told the story to quite a few people, but like I literally was trapped. My hand was locked in this machine and it was dragging me, like off my feet, dragging me into an oven that goes to 750 degrees. Like that oven was about to cremate me. And nobody would have never even knew what happened. Like 750 degrees for like I think it cooked for like 8, almost 9 minutes. That thing was about to do me real bad, right?
I remember
And
you told me the story. That I said that had to have been traumatizing.
very. And I once I realized that there was no help coming, that I'm gonna have to figure my way up out of this. Everything in me told me that I'm gonna have to just yank my hand out of what's got it clamped in there. Now I know I didn't settle in my mind that I'm getting ready to cause some damage. I don't know how bad it's gonna be, but if I don't get my hand out of here, I'm getting ready to die. I said a quick prayer and I yanked with everything I had in me. And in the process, I scratched up my hand quite a bit, bruised some ribs from the thing dragging me through stuff. But I left the tip of my finger in there. I yanked so hard. And when I hit the ground, I laughed. And I laughed because I'm like, damn near just died. And I already knew. I said, and when I tell this story to people, nobody is really gonna understand the magnitude that I damn near just died. Like I just stared death in the face. And I still really was in a state of shock.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I was raised and the way I come up, like I'm no stranger to pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought because I could handle the pain, I was okay.
Yeah.
Like I went to the hospital, they stitched me up. I'm videotaping it while he's stitching me up. We leave the hospital. Stephanie take me back to the house. I shower, change clothes, and I head to South Bend. Doing iron sharpens iron. I ain't even go recoup. I didn't take no medicine, but that was therapeutic for me. I needed that. I needed to be alone in that moment. I like to drive on the highway. I needed to turn that music up, and I just needed to get away and thank God that I'm still here. So one, I was grateful she didn't fight me on that, and she was understanding and just let me go because I needed that. But for the first time in my life, I saw a therapist while dealing with this. And if I'm completely honest, I currently, as we speak, I'm not seeing the therapist anymore, but I need to. Like I
Yes.
didn't know how much I needed to talk to somebody until I had that therapist.
Yeah.
Even when my workers' comp was over and it was time to go back to work,
Mm-hmm.
the my path of least resistance was to just go back to the same job because I'm figuring, okay, I lost the tip of my finger, but I'm good. I
Mm-hmm.
can just go back to work. Now I ain't gotta put in no applications nowhere else. I ain't gotta go through no interview process and background checks. So that was the path of least resistance. So when I told the therapist that, he was like, "You sure about that?" And so I'm like, "Yeah." I'm good. So he asked me. He said, "Well, do me a favor." He said, "Just go back up there to the site, see how you feel being in that space again." And I couldn't even make it back there. I got in the front lobby, man, and
Yeah.
I'm talking about I broke out in a sweat, in a shiver that you would have thought I was dying from COVID.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
went back to the car, I called the therapist, and I said, "You're right, I can't even do it." He said, "I already know you still suffering from trauma."
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I still wasn't grasping this whole trauma thing, and I wouldn't accept that
Yeah.
because I'm like, man, I'm cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's so crazy that we become conditioned to
Yeah.
how we think we're supposed to respond and react to stuff that most people don't even realize
Yeah.
the the effect that the trauma is having on you. Because
Exactly.
you've been operating the way you've been operating for so long,
Oh
it
my
has
gosh.
become norm.
It's
You don't
normal.
even think
Yeah.
nothing's wrong.
Yeah. 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 And
And
I
and
used to
that's
think
where I
that
was
all the
at.
time too before I started therapy. And I said, oh man, no wonder people say, ah, she did, she did. Yeah. Yeah, I've been functioning in dysfunction.
Yeah.
And ain't nobody
Wow.
can tell you you've been functioning wrong or Barbara, pull over. Something ain't right. You're just going through life. And I used to call people crazy, and they're not crazy. They got some trauma that has never been dealt with. And I see it every time I go into that jail.
Mm, wow. Functioning in dysfunction. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. This has been heavy. I seen a question in here before we dip. I wanna address this. So Ashton asked, how is our relationship now? Um, Let me tell it. I think it's better than it's ever been. I think part of it is the growth and the maturity that has taken place, and we finally arrived where we're supposed to be.
Right.
And I don't know, how much of that was my journey, how much of it was yours. I know I had a lot of stuff that I needed to shift to become who I was supposed to be. Um, for us to have that, that kind of a relationship. Like when I first came home, like I literally, I literally looked at us as like strangers to one another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even though you came and visited religiously, like you was there, every step of the way,
We didn't know each other.
not being
You didn't know
we
me, and
didn't
I didn't
know
know
each
you.
other.
No.
Exactly. So we were
Yeah, we had to get to
strangers,
know each other.
right, learning each other.
Mhm. And
And
I had to let you be a man and get out of my boy.
right.
You were a teenager when you got locked up. So I had
Hmm.
to step back and realize that he's a man, he's gonna find his way. So get out of the way, Barbara.
Yeah. I think once both finally accepted reality for reality,
Uh-huh.
then we were able to heal, to grow. Um, yeah, I think that was big, but again, it took time trying to learn who one another was, because even when I first came home, I'm just coming from prison, then got released from prison, and I, moved to a whole new city that I had never been to before. Looking at that as a challenge and trying to piece everything together. But when it came to you, I always was 18 again.
Yep.
Like I can go anywhere else in the world and I can be an alpha male. I can exert my dominance. I command respect. I give respect. I can move how I want to move. But when I come back into my mama presence, I become 18 all over again. I become a
Yeah.
spoiled little brat.
Yeah.
And that in total honesty, that used to frustrate me a little bit.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, man, I'm him. Like I ain't no little kid. But I used to do that. And I recognized that I immediately became a child again. And I felt um comforted by my mama's spirit. And it was enabling me and
Yeah.
in a lot of ways it was stagnating my post incarceration growth.
Yeah. 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 That's when I say I had to step back. stay in my lane and go to God. What did God say?
Yeah. Right.
I always gave you that answer. What did God say? You better pray about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to ignore that for a while. I was so I was so running gun ho that I was ignoring it because you was telling me that, Stephanie was telling me that, or asking me that, and like I was looking at both of y'all like y'all was crazy. Like I'm dealing with some stuff right now. Like I ain't what God say. I said, well, did he talk to you? What he tell you? Maybe he told you so you could tell me. But yeah, man,
That was part of your growth. You had to learn the voice of God.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for agreeing to do this. I know this was stepping out of your comfort zone. So I appreciate it. I appreciate all y'all that tapped in, that stayed on. Some of y'all told us don't stop, keep going. But appreciate y'all, man. This was very therapeutic. Conversation. I didn't know how much I needed this conversation. So, uh, yeah, thank you. Thank y'all. It's been a wonderful season, even though there was a pause there in the season as God was pruning in my life and getting me prepared for this next season in my journey. Um, so I'm back to the drawing board. I'm completely and fully invested in Iron Sharpens Iron. So we got a lot of stuff getting ready to come down the pipeline, a lot of events, a lot of growth getting ready to take place. So y'all stay tuned. Y'all got front row seats. Enjoy the show. And those that's really riding, enjoy the journey because we getting ready to level up. Again, in the absence of Elevate and Illuminate, which, I'll be getting the next season ready to go. Another season. But again, in the meantime, you can always tap into the website, Iron Sharpens Iron, WAST.org. See what we got going on, find ways to get involved. Um, be it as a board member, as a volunteer. If you believe you got what it takes to be an Iron Man, tap in with us. Let's get ready to do this work. If you're just a family member, um, the Just Family Network, which you can get registered for that via the website as well. That's for family members to help better understand their loved ones in an effort to bridge that gap that me and my mom just talked about of coming home and being complete strangers to one another. You could tap in with this unit, this family. Of all like-minded individuals that are going through the same thing you're going through, and y'all can be each other's village in helping one another learn and understand what your loved one is going through, so how to come alongside them and like really walk this walk instead of y'all both being strangers to one another. And it helps you to open up the communication. Because a lot of times we just walk and we suffer because we're afraid to have those tough and uncomfortable conversations.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just got to it and have the conversation and understand that it may hurt for a moment, but joy come in the morning. With that, we're gonna get out of here, man. Love is always love. I appreciate y'all. And I'm gonna challenge. I'm gonna employ everybody to go to the website as we have a game day event, which is a fundraiser for Iron Sharpens Iron coming up May the 31st. So we have flyers out. You can tap into Eventbrite and purchase your tickets. But again, that's May 31st from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's a game night fundraiser for Iron Sharpens Iron. We hoping that the community comes out. We're able to share, Iron Sharpens Iron, share some of our stories in the process, have some good food, and have fun playing some games, win some raffle prizes, the whole nine. So y'all make sure y'all tap in. and come support the movement. Love is love. Everybody have a great evening. Again, Mom, thank you. Appreciate you. Love is love. Till next time.